Hello and welcome back. On this video we're going to be making a headphone stand out of some scrap wood. Here we just have a 2x8. It was split in half from a previous project, so I'm going to glue it back together for a starting point. You can see Shop Dog Maze in the background there. Just some regular Type-On 3 wood glue and some clamps. Luckily it was a clean break, so I was able to put it right back together precisely, which is why I have confidence in this joint that it'll hold up through all this work. Made sure to put enough glue on that I got some decent squeeze out there. Here's removing the clamps. A couple hours later, get a pretty solid piece, and that glue is stronger than the wood it's holding together. Made a template for this project, so I'm just using some 3M 77 spray adhesive to glue it on there. And I'm strategically placing it so that hole is covering that old screw hole that was on the wood. Now for this I chose to cut the hole out first so I'd have more area to grab onto while I'm making that cut, as opposed to cutting the outside first. So I just use a drill to drill a pilot hole there so I can come in with a jigsaw to do that cut. Jigsaw is great for this operation, but it does leave kind of a messy cut, so I'm gonna have to come back in and do some sanding and some cleanup afterwards to get that cut clean. It's coming in on from both sides there and getting that cut, and coming back for that little bit of cleanup. Now in the same vein, while I have it in this position, I'm going to drill out that center cutout there with a Forstner bit. I actually designed this to fit that 2-inch bit, which is the largest Forstner bit I have. Now you got to clean up the mess from the jigsaw, so I'm going to come in with a rasp here, do some of the bulk to get that smooth. These are from Rockler, they work very good. You don't get to use them too often, but when you do, it's a very valuable tool for cleaning up jigsaw marks or any rough saw lines. There's a few different grits of these as well. I would call the first one coarse and this one a little more fine. Then come in with some sandpaper and start to smooth that out a little bit more just to see what I'm working with. That side was pretty clean with that jigsaw cut. Here's also an interesting tool. It's these little foam sanding blocks that I have. They come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes and make sanding weird areas like this a lot easier. You kind of find one that matches your form and then wrap your sandpaper around it and get to work. Now with the bulk of the sanding done, I bring it over to the bandsaw to cut out that main shape to get that outside edge established. Taking it nice and slow around this turn so I have a nice consistent edge so I don't have to do as much sanding on the other end. Now you can kind of see why I chose to do this last. Now with all that material being removed, that's a lot less area to hold down for work holding, for that sanding and all those other operations. Now some more sanding on the outside to get that edge established right down to the line. You can see some burning there left from that sander. I should probably change that pad to avoid that happening. But there's a lot of hand sanding that goes into this after the belt sander here, so it's okay. This side of the sander is great for these curves because you can follow them pretty nicely right around the edge there. Here's a different view of that as well, just to show. Trying to remove those bandsaw marks. This template made the job a lot easier. It was one of the reasons I chose to do this project because I'm learning Fusion 360, and this is one of the options you can get from your designs is printing out a one-to-one template. So this gave me an excuse to continue my learning of that program. There you saw a little sanding block that I put in there that cleans the belt off. A lot of people ask about that. It's not really used that often, and people don't explain what it is, but it's like a rubber that pulls off the grit from the sandpaper, giving you a cleaner edge. So it kind of prolongs the life of your sanding pads. Taking it over to the router now, I'm just putting a small round over on all the sides except for the bottom, just to give a smooth edge, and once again to clean up some of those rough edges left from that jigsaw that kind of tore out on the inside. Now the router bit doesn't go into that tight corner there, so you have to come in with either a knife or a chisel. I chose a knife in this application just to clean up that corner and can have somewhat of a consistent edge. Then you can follow up with sandpaper to get it pretty close to what the router bit leaves. Just work that edge and blend it in on both sides. It gives it a very consistent look. And I chose boiled linseed oil for this finish just for some variety, something different. And I like the look of boiled linseed oil with pine. It kind of brings out that natural beauty of it. I put one coat on for the camera, but ultimately I do 2 or 3 because it sinks in pretty well, especially for this older wood. Here's an interesting graphic I chose to do. Saved all the old pieces from the cuts just to kind of show where the piece comes from within the wood. And here are the pieces in its final home, all ready to hold a headset. Thanks for watching.